Welcome to the Mechanical Room. A Centrotherm production focusing on all things in and around the HVAC industry. And now, your hosts, Michael Sokaris and Matthew Pryce.
Ladies and gentlemen of the HVAC and plumbing industry, welcome to issue 10 of the Mechanical Room. Happy October. Get ready for Halloween. Ooh. Matthew, what is this stuff going on in the background?
So like Atlas now, the world on my shoulders here, it just happened to work out that way. I actually thought that Mr. Sokaris would sit in this seat, but this is all fine. We are, Grease will be rolling past over my shoulder just in a little bit. We are in the Centrotherm green room. We're actually still looking for a good title for this room. Yes, we don't have one. If any of the viewers out there have a
maybe we can make that a part of the challenge.
Yes,
if you come up with a winning name, you are going to get a swag pack in addition to our winner of Show Us Your Pipe.
Yes,
so
indeed.
2 swag packs this month.
Yes, indeed. So yeah, we're green screening here. We are in the studio, aka my office now, which is equipped with lights and microphones and handsome podcast hosts. So this is the Mechanical Room's new home. I will probably be tweaking this background a little bit. I think maybe a few electrical pulses and sound waves, a little bit more motion. That is, I think, the angle we'll go with. But this is what we have today, and I quite like it. It's very futuristic and certainly unique to look at. And I have no guitars behind me anymore. It's probably better that way. They're very distracting, and no,
because you want to play them.
Yeah, no children to yell,
no children
slamming doors, jumping in the pool.
This is my background.
Indeed. So
with us always in every way wanting to be a thought leader in our industry, we thought this would be one way to jazz up our exposure in media the media arm of Centrotherm. So hopefully you'll enjoy it. We've got some really creative things scheduled for later this year, and man, oh man, wait until the end of January for next year. If we can pull this off, it'll be amazing.
Yeah, I think we will. And obviously it's still a work in progress. You want to describe our camera stand today?
It's a lovely cardboard. What is that, a 10-foot box?
No, it's so inside of it would be our, I believe, our 4-inch concentric termination, which requires 2 boxes to encompass. And so I've got the camera mounted on the cardboard of one of our actual products. It's in here because I'm going to use this room to film some training videos and stuff.
Well, you should upgrade your stand.
Yeah, I think I'll get a tripod just to be sure about it, because it is a bit. I'll take a picture of it because it's kind of funny. But it is working clearly. How do we look, everybody? We're having a blast here. Obviously, this is our first time doing this.
The podcast, yes.
Maybe
we've done some training stuff and some other things.
Yeah, but it's a lot of fun and certainly groundbreaking for the industry, which is obviously what we strive to do here on the Mechanical Room and at Centrotherm writ large. We have another futuristic and forward-thinking guest today. We're pretty excited for Steve Wieland, who is certainly a known commodity in this industry. He comes highly recommended. He's a friend to Centrotherm and soon to be a friend to the Mechanical Room. Knowing him is going to be the kind of guy that we're going to bring back on, because he's got just such a wealth of information and knowledge and hilarious stories. I mean, he hosts his own thing, Thirsty for Knowledge Thursdays for the NTI line, and it's great, and he's great, and we're very excited to speak to him. So, but before we do,
as always, we would like to transition to Show Us Your Pipe. All right, welcome back to the Mechanical Room. It is the Show Us Your Pipe session. And Matthew, who is the lucky winner this month, and tell us about their job?
So the October Show Us Your Pipe victorious plumbing institution is the great PSI Incorporated out of Vail, Colorado. The system that we're going to be looking at today is a series of IBC units with, and really the most spectacular diamond
As
plate.
always.
I mean, I can't get away from this diamond plate. It's like my favorite feature of this. I'm gonna ask my wife.
We should do a diamond plate in the background.
Oh, I
of
could
one of our
definitely do
shows.
that. Now that we're in the studio, I think that might have to happen. We'll diamond plate, maybe I'll diamond plate this one just to, well, it's a little late for this one now, but in the
Maybe our
future.
transition out if we have time.
There you go. We can definitely work on that for future ones. I wish I would have thought of it before, but as always, we kind of just hurdle towards show us your pipe. So anyways, as you're seeing now on screen, this is a gorgeous setup, large diameter. I can't quite tell if it's 8 or 10 inches, but it is certainly large diameter. The copper piping is amazing. The whole room is pretty epic. I mean, this is
they've even done the floor, it looks like, with that epoxy paint. It's just a well done job as always.
Yeah, I mean, everything about this installation is as pro as it can get, and that's, I mean, obviously what we strive for here. I mean, this is one of the cleanest mechanical rooms I've ever seen. This thing is so sharp, so organized, so orderly. I mean, we've had a lot of great installations on here, but this might be the cleanest one or the most involved too. I mean, there's a lot going on here.
There is.
I mean, I count 5 units, and that's just in this one frame here. And I mean, there's just so much stuff going on here. I mean, I just quickly want to thank Yates Termerman. He is the Western Regional Sales Manager at IBC Technologies for posting these to LinkedIn. I mean, as he mentions in his post, which I will link to, no wires showing, everything's behind the wall. This is one of the most, detailed and I wouldn't say labor intensive exactly, but I mean, this is meticulous.
The word I like to use is craftsman.
Yeah,
it is a craftsman that has done that job.
I mean, this is as pro as is pretty much achievable in a mechanical room. Yeah. I mean, look at one thing I will say is they're playing with a great deal of space. Yeah. Something you can't do sometimes is do this if you're really trying to,
in a tight spot.
Yeah. So, I mean, in that case, you might rack them in a different way, back to back instead. I mean, but this they maximize the space here. If I was a guy who's going into service, this type of thing, I mean, you look for this.
It would be a pleasant entry into the room if you had to work on this after this install. You'd walk into this and you're like, okay, yeah, these guys know what they're doing.
I mean, everything is accessible. There's nothing about this is remotely messy. It is as professional as it gets, and that is why they have won our October contest, and we'll be sending them out some cool Centrotherm material to thank them for using the Inaflu product and putting it on such a gorgeous installation. So thank you to PSI. And thank you to Yates Timmerman of IBC for posting these. And we will be right back with the legendary Steve Wheels Wieland. Welcome back to the mechanical room. And today we welcome in our very first sought after OEM guest. Today we have the notable Wheels, usually known by just Wheels in the industry and the world over,
Steve Wheels Wieland.
He's the Mid-Atlantic sales manager for NTI boilers. He has been teaching contractors and engineers how to install and repair hydronic heating, radiant heat, and snow melt systems since '85, when I was just a wee one. Registered mastered plumber, wholesale experience, former rep. He holds numerous certificates and from many major heating equipment manufacturers. Field experience shows in humorous stories, which we are absolutely looking forward to, especially when he's asked to answer questions and help solve problems from anywhere around the globe. Also, he hosts his own program. Catch him first and third Thursday of every month on NTI's Thirsty for Knowledge Thursdays. Steve gave me a little bit of a bio on NTI itself, so I'm going to let you do that, Steve. Michael, welcome our guest to the Mechanical Room studio.
Hello there, Steve. It's been a long time since we've been together.
Yes, it has been. Yes, it has been. Mike, good to see you.
Last time we saw each other was ASHRAE, where was the last one? In Florida, I believe.
Yeah, that was 2 years ago.
It was. I believe that's the last time.
Yeah.
So welcome. And as Matthew said, you're our guest. The The program is not about Centrotherm per se. It's about the industry. And with that said, it's your gig. Tell us about NTI, what you do, why they're so great. It's all yours.
Wow, that's a big feed-in. So you know, it's NTI has got its name just from being an honest company doing everything on the cutting edge. So, you know, in fact, last night we were reminded of the history because we had Kevin Dennison as a guest for almost 2 hours on an interview. But NTI started back in 1967 as New Yorker Boiler of Canada. Went into the condensing boiler field in 1995. We came out with a thing called the Legacy. Few people have seen that boiler. But that was our cutting edge boiler, 91% efficient, and we grew it from there. And 97, we came out with the original T-Series boiler and learned a lot from that because in 2003, we came out with the TI improved. And today we offer 8 distinct different lines of condensing boilers because we know that's the future. You know, being a steel oil boiler manufacturer in the beginning up in Canada, we knew that the future of this industry was to gain efficiency. So why would we sit there and develop gas in an 82% efficient spark igniter cast iron boiler when the way to go is why compete with that? We don't have a foundry. So we started in the condensing field and we're the first people to introduce it to North America and bring it around. And, you know, and to be honest with anybody listening, I've been in this industry for a long time, as you heard from my bio. I mean, today is my, or this year is my 49th anniversary as being in the plumbing and heating field. And yeah, right, I'm still alive. It's better than the alternative. But I didn't even know who NTI was 18 years or 13 years ago after being well in this business for over 40 years. But I knew who New Yorker Boiler was because they were made right here in Colmar, Pennsylvania, not 16 miles from my house. So then I was introduced to NTI as a rep 13 years ago, and 11 years ago, I joined the company because I just loved the dependability. I loved that Kevin wanted to make the best boiler with the best support, with the best team. And in Kevin's own words, the way he manages is to empower his people and let them do what they do best and go out and sell. And it's been great.
So you've been empowered for sure. You've been there a long time. You were there early in the condensing days. How was that pioneering process like? How did you go about it? How did you convince people to go to the higher efficiency appliances?
Well, you know, it's funny that you asked that because the biggest selling feature then, and you can see my boilers behind me, was the step in back then because I was selling as a wholesaler in the early, you know, in the early 2000s, I was selling other brands. But the biggest selling feature, even to me then, was why would you lift an 800-pound cast iron boiler when you can lift a 110-pound stainless steel condensing boiler? Why would you worry about lining a flue with stainless steel liners or aluminum liners, running B-vent through a house when you can do it in plastic, right? You could direct vent them. You can vent them today using polypropylene liners, which makes it even easier. And so then we tackled the venting thing, and then we said, you know, now you pick up, and especially during COVID, people could pick up almost 100 square feet of their basement to put an office in by hanging one of these on the wall instead of a big cast iron beast that's just taking up room and overheating the room. And now you're comfortable. It's quiet. You can be there. But it also has its alternatives to have to deal with, like annual maintenance, which has been a hard go because as an industry, we never serviced an atmospheric gas boiler ever. And now I'm telling people it's a power burner like oil. You have to service these units yearly. And this has been a whole go amongst itself. So, but yeah, so my biggest selling feature was weight. Because as you know, I'm not 20 anymore, and I lift these things every day.
So as far as the fact that they need to be serviced, which they do, are you working with contractors to educate them? Is this a bigger piece of their business to not just do the install, walk away, you know, slap a sticker on it, walk away, but now get into a conversation with a contractor on how do they create a service business? How does that process work for you guys? How are contractors in the Mid-Atlantic doing in creating this, you know, sub-business even?
So that's, you know, interesting on that point, because I deal with a lot of what we call now energy companies, which used to be Sol Oil, and they already have the software built in. They already have the annual oil boiler service. To have them add in annual service on our boilers and us state it in our manuals that they need annual service, that was an easy go. It's the one guy shop down the corner who's installing, you know, a dozen or 2 dozen of these a year that's hard with. And I came up with a simple solution for them, because we all carry these stupid things we call smartphones now, right? And they all have calendars. And God knows, if it wasn't for this, I wouldn't know my wife's phone number, and probably not her birth date, though I hope she doesn't listen to this. And I get reminders. So I came up with a great idea that some guys are using, and I said, everybody has a dollar store. I mean, we all know. I mean, there's a Dollar General or a whatever right around the corner from everybody. I said, go buy yourself. You know, these guys are going, well, we don't want to buy the software to have, you know, annual service contracts and reminders and all this shit. And I said to him, I said, simply go to the dollar store and pick up the cheapest box of birthday cards you can buy. And when you install Mrs. Jones's boiler, on your calendar, put installed Mrs. Jones boiler today, and make it an annual thing so it comes up every year. My birthday reminders come in a week before the birthday. And I said to him, just buy a roll of stamps, write a little note saying, you know, Mrs. Jones, I'd like to, you know, just sending you a note saying, you know, happy birthday to your boiler. Don't forget it's time for your annual service, and send it to her. Now think of what this does for the customer. One, it says that you're thinking of them. You haven't forgotten them. It wasn't a dump and run. You know, the warranty didn't run out when his taillights disappeared. It means he wants to take care of this and make sure that boiler stays happy for the maximum amount of life he can get. And it's a simple little thing. I mean, birthday cards, really. But think of this as a homeowner. What would you do if you get this handwritten card from your contractor that says, I want to come in and do a $250 service on your boiler to make sure this thing lasts forever? Because the customer, that's not a $3,000 boiler. That was sometimes in Manhattan, that's a $25,000 boiler, because that's what it costs to install.
Yeah.
So this is saying you care and you want to take care of their investment. And the guys are grasping it. It's like printing money in the fall. I mean, you know, good golly, I mean, think of this. It's building business. Every boiler you put in is annual business, for God's sake. So it's working, and people are doing it. Now, there's a lot of people still do the dump and run, the cheap guy, the guy who comes in and instead of doing it for $15,000, he came and said, I'll do it for $6,000. And of course, 1, he does a shoddy job. 2, he doesn't support it. And 3, he wouldn't know how to service it if you paid him. And unfortunately, as a manufacturer, we can't stop that. Right. But we can surely provide somebody who can. So,
yeah, and that birthday card technique is so personal. It's really the extra mile, really, of providing that personal touch, which is really so big in this industry now and growing. You know, I mean, it does make them think that you're thinking about them. And, you know, it's very different than a spammy email or an auto-generated, even a mailer piece that could come out that is just so generic to, you know, or what's what I'm looking for when they do the mail merge type of thing, where it's just, okay, greetings,
dear customer,
right? And or like they put their name in accidentally, so it has a typo because the computer is told to do it, right? That type of handwritten thing really does go the extra mile. It really shows that you are interested in maintaining this equipment, which I think speaks to at least a certain segment of homeowners. At least, I mean, the customers that are our best ones are interested in that sort of stuff as well. So that's a really nice sort of forward-thinking marketing technique that I think other people should maybe look into doing something like that. It's pretty smart.
It is. It's clever.
I mean, a 50-cent stamp, a 10-cent card, 5 minutes in the evening when you get home from being on the road, and you've just got a customer for life.
Right. That's a good tip.
So
on that note, if something needs to be serviced, what is that something?
Well, on every condensing boiler, of course, you have to do an annual visual inspection, right? So you should go in and look at it. You know, this stops me from getting phone calls like the top of this boiler is totally rotted out from a drip above it. That takes years to do. Right? So I already know how bad it is. 2, you need to check the trap to make sure it's not clogged full of crap, right? So, because it has to get rid of its condensator, bad things happen. 3, check for water leaks, checks for gas leaks. This is normal, right? This is part of your visual. And then minimally do a combustion analysis to make sure she's still running like the day she was put in, and see what your stack temperature is versus your supply temperature. Because on
Some of our audience may not be educated enough to know how.
Some of your hosts have no idea what you're talking about.
So what is it that you do? Again, part of what we do is try to educate a little bit. What's that process look like?
Well, what do you mean, on a combustion analysis?
Yeah, on a combustion analysis. How do you do that analysis?
It's where you have to have a combustion analyzer. So available now, I mean, you can buy a combustion analyzer, and I'm not talking about the back rack kits that I grew up with back in the 70s, where you had a pink shaky thing for the CO2 that you never maintained and never changed the liquid on. There's no pulling of smoke anymore. It literally, you can buy them for $450. Bluetooth goes right to your phone. You put it in the port on the top of our exhaust. You turn the boiler on. You take the CO2 rating. You dial in the gas valve to where our specifications are, and you print it out. But while doing that, you also look at your stack temperature. The important thing I was going to mention there is your stack temperature should never run more than 30 degrees over your supply or your outlet temperature of the boiler. So if we're producing 180 degree water and you look at your stack temperature and it's over 210, that means that combustion chamber is dirty and the products of combustion can't get out. So understand that we're taking gas, which is an energy, converting it into flame, which is energy, and taking that energy and putting it into the water, which we see as heat, right? As hot water, and put that out to the house as energy, right? But if the products of combustion can't get out, that burner at its core is at about 2100 degrees. So you can imagine if those products of combustion can't get through that heat exchanger and get out to the stack, it's going to get extremely hot, and we see that by the stack temperatures going up. So
do you stack temperatures hitting above 150 plus degrees?
Well, if you're running 180 degree stack temperature, your stack temperature is going to be anywhere from 175 to 190 usually. So
that due to the venting, I got to weave that in. You know where I was going.
So I'll step back to the venting for in 1 second, because that's an extremely important point that I want to make. But on a water tube heat exchanger, so on a heat exchanger like the one on there that I have this cover screwed on, but a water tube heat exchanger must be cleaned on the combustion side every year on propane, every 2 years on natural gas. Fire tubes, 30 degree rule works great. Now, with that said, you ask about stack temperatures, and I have to mention, in my mind, what I've seen as the spectrum of PVC colors, and you guys will love this. So because I have guys telling me that it turns yellow because it's been in the sun, and I call bullshit, because you go into a basement and you don't see pipe that's been laying out at the local wholesaler for years in a basement yellow. You don't see it. So now let's look at what happens as we start to increase the temperature of PVC, which is only rated to 140 degree waste, right? And now let's look at the color spectrum. It's white, it turns yellow, it goes tan, it goes brown. What people don't understand is after brown, it goes pink, then it turns purple, then it turns black, and then it turns fire. You see how that works? And in the past 13 years, I have seen every single one of those color spectrum, which is why I can do it by memory. It's like looking at stainless steel. I have a color band chart of the colors of stainless steel for people who have dry fired boilers. And I look at the purple of the stainless, which obviously stainless is not purple normally. And I can pull it up, and I think the worst pre-fire I saw on a PVC vent, and it was totally vented incorrectly. The PVC came up about 6 inches off the boiler, and they had a no-hub band clamp on it, which you can't use on venting, right? But they had it, and it was one of the thick ones, not the stainless steel band ones, but the real thick rubber ones. And the black PVC was larger than that band coupling.
It had expanded on the diameter of the coupler.
Absolutely blown up. I would love to show you pictures, but it scares me to show them.
Maybe we can get it and we can put it into the podcast.
Yeah,
if you have it, and you can readily get it.
I would love to see the color band stuff that you have as well. I'll add that in so that we can see it. So we get a reference point. If you've got those in digital, please send them on over. We'd love to include that. I mean, obviously the goal of this is to have a little fun, but also to educate. And I mean, obviously you're a wealth of that, which is why I wanted to ask about numerous teaching certificates. When did that start? And, you know, like run down some more of the resume. I'd be curious.
Well, that's funny. You know, so I'm a master plumber by trade, right? I was one of the earliest, youngest master plumbers in my territory. Some people say I was so young I must have bought it, but if they knew how much money I didn't have, they knew I didn't, that I actually earned it. So, you know, which is kind of funny because as a 21-year-old kid getting his master plumber's license, it was kind of fun. But I went into the wholesale business. I sold my plumbing business after 5 years and bought a supply house. And through that supply house, I had this numerous people come in because I was big in hydronics, because plumbing and heating guys, which are different than HVAC guys, a plumbing and heating guy knows gravity feed and knows circulators and thinks circulators should be on the returns and not learning new technology. And their favorite saying is, I've been doing it this way for 40 years. I'm not going to change, right? So, you know, it's kind of like Taco saying that they put in the largest circulator because it's the contractor no callback mode, right? So it's true. But I had this Swedish guy come into my office say, you know, we really want you to get onto this radiant floor heat gig. And at the same time, I'm dealing with a company called Weil McLean, who I was a wholesaler for, with these new high efficient boilers called the GV and the AHE and the VHE, and trying to teach people primary, secondary circulation. And these guys aren't understanding, we're getting failures and overheats. And now I got this Thomas Lemon from this company called Wiersbo back then telling me he wanted me to buy his PEX. And I said, you know, the only way this is going to work is if we start teaching the guys how to do this right. It's going to keep me and my company from going out there all the time, because back then you couldn't find a rep, you couldn't find somebody from Wiersbo to go out, you couldn't find somebody from, I mean, I did have a great Weil McLean guy, Kenny Dryberg, rest his soul, was phenomenal, but we started teaching these guys how to do it. So, you know, one of my first things I became was a Wiersbo trainer, and then I became a Wiersbo train the trainer. And, you know, then I went into the Radiant, helped start the Radiant Panel Association with Larry Drake back then. And this was to educate the guys, not just on radiant heat, but how to do primary, secondary circulation, not just with high efficient boilers, which could condense, but with cast iron boilers, we're doing outdoor reset, and you can't have them condense because they'd break. So now we're teaching all these mechanics on primary, secondary, and high velocity circulators, and how to figure head and GPM. And there was just no other way to do it but to train these guys and start training them. And I went on to actually re-overhaul one of the local tech schools and their apprenticeship program for Pennsylvania, and do the whole hydronics thing and teach these guys not just how to do primary, secondary, but how to figure what they were doing, like do a heat loss so you know how many B2 you need. So you stop putting in the contractor no callback boiler. You know, you stop putting in 150,000 B2 boiler when you only need 40,000 B2. You know, get away from doing 1.5-inch pipe when you could have been using 1 inch, or to use 1.5 inches when you shouldn't be using 1 inch, and how to size circulators. And it just became a whole mechanical room thing that I took these apprentices from, it's a house, to it's a heat load, it's an equilibrium, to it's a system. And not just that, but teaching them that they can put in less money, less cost product, give the customer a better job, and make more profit. And that is I mean, that just lands it for them, and they learned well. Thank God for John Siegenthaler and his book Modern Hydronics, because it was a phenomenal resource.
Yeah, how is the education out there happening? I mean, you're known in the Mid-Atlantic, right? Everybody knows you, no matter who you are, if you're in the industry. But if you're coming in new, what's the best way to learn? You know, how do these young guys coming into the industry become effective?
Well, you know, YouTube is a great thing, right? So, I mean, you can YouTube heating. I had the guy who works on my computers was doing his own air conditioning because he looked it up on on YouTube. I'm like, oh my God, stay away from the Freon, for God's sake. But I mean, this is something I won't even do. I don't understand. I mean, I understand how HVA, how air conditioning works. I don't touch it because that's not my forte. But you know, you can start there. You can go to the manufacturer's resources. We have all sorts of videos available. Podcasts like this, webinars like I do. The wholesaler, believe it or not, the wholesaler can be an invaluable resource because they'll post their trainings. You know, take that 4 or 6 or 8 hours and learn. One of the biggest problems we have with training is a manufacturer will list a training and teach you how to install their boiler, when in reality, all you're going in and the guy is standing up front going, and this is our boiler. It's lovely. It's 95% efficient. Isn't this great? It comes in gray, blah, 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 blah. I like to hang myself. I mean, if I sit through one more of those, I just, and that's why the guys don't want to do it, right? So, you know, it's hard for me to teach the wholesaler to build value and actually charge for a training so that people know there's value to it, right? It's go to the webinars at night. It's a free resource. I mean, we put ours from 7 to 8 o'clock at night. Why? Because on the East Coast, this time of the year, it's dark. You're not outside cutting the grass. You're not at a ball game. You're not, you know, it's before you get to Thursday night football, right? And we drink beer during it, so it's even better. And I mean, that's hence the reason for the 6 taps behind me.
There you go. So that brings me to the next thing here, which is I want to hear a little bit about Thirsty for Knowledge Thursdays, which is clearly what you're doing right now. And you've got the brewery sign right there, so there's obviously some kind of tie-in. Do you make your own beer also? Tell us a little bit about all of that and how it works and who is attending these.
So it's funny, but I've always been in water, right? So no matter how you look at it, as a plumber, I was in water. I went into the well pumps because nobody understood those, water. I went into hydronic heating because it's water. I became a scuba instructor back in the 80s because it's water. And in 95, I had a throwdown bet. We were drinking down at a little place, brand new place called, and you might recognize the name, Dogfish Head Brewery. Just a little place, right? So we're drinking down at Sam's First Place, who I've had the opportunity to get to know actually. And I look at his system, and it's just like 320-gallon kettles on top of burners, and we're like, if he can create this great stuff, I bet we could. And so in 96, we started brewing, and today in where I'm sitting, my 2-car garage is to commercial standards. I do brew my own beer. That is a 4x6 walk-in cooler behind me. Over to my left is 3 glycol fermenters on a glycol chiller. In front of me, behind the camera, is my half-barrel brew house. And underneath me is my trench drain and my epoxied floors. And my wife loves it because I make one beer just for her, and then I make all my other beer for everybody else. But yeah,
I think we need a Centrotherm site visit.
We might.
You know, and you guys say that. So I've had contractors here to my right. I have 2 of our boilers. Behind me, you see 2 of my boilers, and I have a complete tool facility here. I've actually had contractors here. Don't drive a company van because you can't have a beer and drive a company van. You know, come on over, hang out. We'll go through boilers. We'll tear them down. We'll teach you all about the installation and have a beer while we're doing it.
It sounds like you need to partner with maybe Uber, like Wheels Training, sponsored by Lyft and Uber for safety. Of course, don't go do any gas firing installations until you sleep it off.
The thing is, beer has water, so you're still in the water business.
Absolutely. And it's funny, but my daughter told me that this past during COVID, I went beyond water and I went to the 3 Bs, right? So what most people don't know about me is I've tried to get out of this industry at least a dozen times. And I just keep, you know, I reached into the hat in Harry Potter and I pulled out hydronics. I mean, I can't get out of this house. So, but in the 70s, I actually went to cooking school and in the culinary arts. And so I haven't baked since 1976. And during COVID, my next throwdown was to learn how to make my own sourdough yeast and then make sourdough. So but the byproduct of brewing is spent grain. You have, you know, sourdough bread, you have beer. So I started making dog biscuits out of spent grain. So my daughter made me a shirt because I'm in the Bs. It was beer, bread, and biscuits.
Biscuits.
And I'll add one more to it, boilers.
Bread.
So I'm
Yes.
at the 4 Bs. So I think that's pretty funny, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
I noticed that on your Facebook page, as I was kind of doing a little research before, that interests skiing, golfing, and baking, which I'm like, that's interesting. That doesn't jive, but that's okay.
I met my wife diving. She was one of my students. Oh my God. In ice diving, right? Of all things, we're diving through 24 inches of ice, teaching them how to do this in dry suits and it's crazy. But the way I won her heart was by cooking for her, and which is, she still talks about the first sandwich I ever made, sandwich no less. It was a hot pastrami sandwich. She remembers it like it was yesterday. And so she's always known me to be the cook in the house, and just baking was just, not only was it frustrating in the beginning, but it's been a fun challenge.
I think we definitely have to.
Sourdough bread, pastrami, beer, doesn't get any better than that.
Yeah, I mean, we're in. We're in. I'll send you an Outlook invite type, block off like a Scotty. We'll be up there soon. Oh, that's amazing, man. You've got such crazy stories from all kinds of different walks of life and different interests and stuff. I think that's what makes you an amazing and highly recommended and coveted guest. Do you get into this stuff a little bit when you're the host?
Sometimes it's when we're doing the Thirsty Thursday webinars, right? So, and I have to put the foreknowledge in there because someone has trademarked Thirsty Thursdays, so it's Thirsty for Knowledge Thursdays. We do get into some of it. I have a question answer period afterwards, and in the beginning, I start every episode with a craft beer review. So. And we do everything. A lot of people were blaming me for doing only beers available in my territory or my wife's territory, where my wife grew up in Maine, so I'm up there quite a bit. And so I started doing nationals and
Shipyard. And my favorite, Allagash.
Allagash is a beautiful place. Yep. My wife's favorite's Oxbow, but that's besides the point. I actually do a beer that's better than theirs, which is a good thing. But So I taught her scuba, and now I've been skiing since I was probably 3 years old, right? And hadn't skied in years because I used to race, and when you do that kind of thing, you get kind of burnt out. And I hadn't touched my skis, even though my parents live in northern Vermont, across the street from a huge ski mountain. I had pretty much given up skiing, and she moved in with me now 20 years ago, and she asked me, "What are you doing on Tuesday?" For dinner, I said, "I don't know what you're doing, but I'm playing golf." And we had that same conversation on Thursday and that same conversation on Saturday. And she said, "Well, if you're going to do this shit, I got to learn it." And she actually, I set her up with my golf pro, and she learned how to golf, and she golfs great today. But come winter time, now she turns the tables on me. And I said, "What are we doing this weekend?" She says, "I don't know what you're doing, but I teach skiing on the weekends." I said, "You teach skiing?" She goes, "Yeah, I teach people with disabilities how to ski. I teach adaptive skiing." And I said, "Get out of here." And she said to me, "Well, if you want to see me on the weekends, you're going to learn to do this." So I went out and bought all new equipment, got back on skis. It's like riding a bike, got back into it. And now I'm an instructor within our group at Camelback Mountain here in Pennsylvania, Pennsylvania Center for Adapted Sports. And I literally teach people how to tether sit skis for para and quadriplegics. And it's
that is amazing. Good for you guys.
I would love for you to send a few photos, or if I can just grab them off your Facebook, I'd love to see some of this and add some of this media for our viewers on YouTube so they can see it all in action.
You can actually go on my Facebook page, and there's videos of us doing it, which is just fun to get. And our problem we're having today is like all trades, right? We're all getting older, and it's hard to get the younger generations into this. And this is a trade-wise, whether it's skiing, scuba, boilers, it doesn't matter. We're electricians, carpenters. We're not getting people into the physical trades, and this is something that we're trying to gain people to get into. And I don't fear for my generation. I fear for my grandchildren's. Yes, I have two, my grandchildren's generation that when they get to be homeowners, if they don't know it, there's going to be so few tradesmen to do work on their house that the cost is going to make a doctor look cheap. Because for every 10 we lose, either through retirement or through death, we only gain 1 right now. And that's a really bad position to be in the trades.
Yeah, I mean, we're seeing that pretty much almost across all industries, but especially in HVAC. And you know, Talbot G, CEO of Hardy, they're all about this, you know, Distributor Alliance. I'm sure you guys know about them. I mean, that is an angle that they talk about, or rather a problem that they're working on, because they identify it as a pretty serious problem. There is a dearth of HVAC tradespeople, right? So it does drive the cost up because of demand.
They're actually doing media to try to draw younger people into the trades, and they're doing a super job at Hardy with that.
Yeah. Shout out to Chris DeBoer for producing the documentary about that. That's really, it's a recruitment tool basically, and it focuses exactly on what you're talking about.
Chris is a tremendous. I'm actually on one of the committees on Hardy, and for hydronics.
Which one?
And
on the hydronics. I'm on the residential committee.
Yeah.
Marketing. Yeah.
And
so
Dennis, who's
we give back too.
Yeah, Dennis Ellis on the other side of the door over there. Not a green screen office, but you know, he's doing it over there. He's on the logistics committee. So you know, Hardy's a good friend to us, and then there's more on that to come. I won't give it away. Well, we got big plans with Hardy coming up here, so it's going to be a fun thing. But we love those guys, and obviously we're all on the same page here with what you're talking about.
Yeah, it's you know, and this whole onus of trade started back in the 70s. I mean, let's think about this. When you were a bad kid in school, and today we say that you have ADHD or ADD, they couldn't control you because the teachers didn't want to, so they sent you to tech school. But you went to tech school and you could play with fire in the plumbing division. You could play with food in the food division. You could play. But today, if you go to that same tech school, there's no physical trades. Very few. I do know of 2, like Lehigh Valley Tech, that does a great job. But you know, you go to my local place, if you're not in night school, and even at night school, they wouldn't let me. Ooh, don't touch electric. Oh, don't get flame. Oh, you could hurt somebody. And this is what we're dealing with, right? Send the bad kids there. So my entire generation thinks that plumbers are just a bunch of bad kids that plumb because they couldn't do anything else. And this we have to, and we're working on, not just Hardy, but people like Mike Rowe is out there doing national syndication stuff when it comes to trades, and we just got to get more people into them. And you know, at career shows, people say, you know, what would you do today if you had the opportunity to start all over? And I'd say, well, I would have given up on everything except for I would have spent much more time, not that I didn't already, in the trades. I mean, I got in the trades because somebody said, hey, I need a helper, and I wanted a pair of jeans. And I'll be honest with you, digging a ditch was just as easy if I was digging it for a drain line or whether I was doing it for a garden. And that's how I got into this thing. So
interesting. Well, while we're back at the industry stuff, what was your last year and a half like? How did you manage through it?
Well, we went totally, you know, it's when COVID hit, they shut us down for 2 weeks back in March because they thought, you know, it's just going to be a 2-week blow over thing, right? So I said, well, if I have to work from my office for 2 weeks, I'm going to Maine. So I grabbed my laptop and I go to Maine, where my wife was living at the time, and taking care of her sister. And I moved in and thought 2 weeks, you know, I'll pack up my laptop and go home in 2 weeks. And 2 weeks later, they said, indefinitely. So I came home, transferred beer, carbonated stuff, brewed another batch, put it in the fermenter, grabbed my entire office, you know, my desktop, my 4 monitors, my lap, you know, took everything up to Maine and worked from there for almost a year, coming back here every 4 to 6 weeks to handle a couple things. But in the meantime, we as an industry have not seen a slowdown. 2 years ago, last summer, it was a big HVAC thing, right? I mean, air conditioning was off the charts because everybody's like, oh, my office isn't comfortable enough. What do I do? You know, and then winter hit.
Listen to me complaining?
He does not.
and then winter hit and everybody's like, oh my God, it's not so comfortable in here. I need better heat. And then they said, we want to put our office in the boiler room. So let's get rid of the boiler. And all of a sudden in the boiler industry, it's just, I mean, we've seen almost across the board in the past 12 months, a 40% increase, not just at NTI, but in the marketplace. We've seen almost an average across the nation of a 40% increase in hydronic boiler sales and condensing residential hydronic boiler sales, which has never been seen before.
Remarkable.
Yeah.
So what's your, speaking on numbers then, what are you looking for next week? I've got the regionals here. Paul is feverishly calculating. What are you guys looking at for next year? For
I just picture Paul with an adding machine going.
No. Paul has his abacus out, and he has it. He has it at the restaurant at the Hilton Garden Inn as he's having a beer, and he's trying to figure out what next year's. I love Paul.
We all do. Paul is the best. I love working with Paul. He gives it just as good as we give it to him, which is, I think, a really, it's good for this industry for sure.
Well, and I'll be with Paul all next week. So we have three shows we're doing next week together. So that'd be pretty fun. But next year, it scares me. So, and I say that because we've had such a growth this year. So, from the top down, looking to me for next year's budget, which we're already in budget crunch. You guys are in budget crunch. We're in the last quarter. It's like, the Eagles playing the Patriots, and they were even at halftime, and now they're going to the fourth quarter going, holy shit, what do we need to do now, right? So we're looking at next year, and there's a lot of factors that come in. One, they're trying to expect the same growth we had this year, which is not maintainable. We know it's not maintainable. Two, on a positive note for me, a condensing boiler is a 15-year product. So we have boilers that have been installed, still running since 2000, that now need a new condensing boiler. And so that comes into play. But if you listen to the Hardys and the AHRs and the economics of the world and what's going on, it fears me that this growth we've seen this year isn't going to be flat, isn't going to be a gain. I'm projecting a 10% growth for next year, not a 40% growth. But, for my territory, I'll see if my bosses agree with me. But I'm fearful that we're all going to see that decline because all of a sudden, all these chips are going to become available. For some reason, someone's going to come up with boats and containers to be able to ship stuff and guys to unload them and truckers to deliver them. And all this infrastructure crap is going to be solved by March. And we're all going to be sitting there with all this product going, oh, that's nice. Now, what do we do now?
That scares me a bit too, because you've been doing it a long time, a little longer than me, but this has been the most craziest year in forecasting for next year. Is a lot of moving pieces, and it's a little scary. I agree. This is the toughest I've ever had to do.
My fear comes from inbred in the 80s when I bought a supply house. I'm maxed out on mortgages, personal notes. I'm at that time that the company was only 12 employees, which we grew to 3 branches and 36 families to feed. But the recession hit in the late 80s, and I'm sitting there with a warehouse full of shit going, oh my God, what do I do now? and that's my fear, is that, and I've seen that 3 times through the wholesale business since then, right? And my fear is that 2022 is going to be a reset year, and that scares me a little bit. So I'm going in a bit like a Italian mine field, where the guy's going with his hands over his ears and his foot in front of him, stepping on the ground to see where the mines are. So I really am going into it a little cautious. That doesn't mean we've slowed down our planning. We've increased our education because we get in person again. We've increased the number of live fire vans we have on the road in North America to 5, where we only had 1. we're out there on a daily basis seeing contractors doing live fire, doing trainings, so that as we watch the condensing market grow and the cast iron business drop off, we want to stay in that top 4 position no matter where the market goes. So even if it drops, we still want to maintain that, and we are. So it's
Yeah, I just came from a conference during this week, and they had one of the economists there that's kind of forecasting, looking forward, and they all vary and for different reasons. The one guy that was there this week projected a 23% growth on the residential side and a 3% growth on the commercial side. You know, you guys are performing very strongly. We're performing very strongly. And we have high goals for next year, but again, I'm a little fearful.
Yeah, I hope we see the 23. I know that my office is probably going to hold me to, you know, if I say 10, they say 20. I'm sure they're going to hold me to 20.
3% growth for next year.
So
I don't know, Steve.
what happened? I'm here. You guys froze.
The video is
Uh-oh.
froze, so I'm not sure if we lost him or not. But
No.
if we did, I mean, we're coming to the top of the hour anyway. So, Steve, if you could still see us, I guess he just disconnected there. But we'll just conclude that by saying scuba diver, sourdough baker, host and trainer, boiler and hydronic expert, brewmaster, greeting card enthusiast, scratch golfer. The man does everything. Steve, we can't thank you enough for joining us. We hope you'll come back and do this again. And should you need some venting novices and experts for some knowledge on Thursday, well, I'll get one of the engineers to come on the show.
Well, so am I back now?
I believe he's back.
Yeah, we can see. Welcome back. Welcome back.
So I don't know what happened there. Everything froze at my end too, but I just want to take a moment and thank you guys at Centrotherm. You know, I was introduced to you guys 14 years ago, and I come from the PlexVent and UltraVent days, and when I was approached about your product, which was gray and plastic, just like PlexVent and UltraVent that had massive failures, I kind of said to the person at the time, and I won't mention Jim Mollay's name, I said, no, go. I said, go away, just go away. I mean, you're a rocket scientist. He truly was, and I don't want anything to do with your product.
Nuclear scientist.
Yeah.
Nuclear scientist, yeah. And he actually came down and introduced me to your product and actually introduced it in a way that was phenomenal to me. He said, and he had done his research. He said, aren't you a Viessmann wholesaler? I said, well, yeah, I am. He says, and what do you vent? Have you ever had a problem with their venting product? I said, no. I said, and you have to use their proprietary venting? I said, yeah. And he says, well, you know what's on the inside of that concentric vent? And I said, no. He says, Centrotherm, polypropylene. And I said, wow. And we've seen such a growth with like chimney kits and B-vent kits and rigid pipe in 5 different sizes of lengths. And you guys have answered everything the market's wanted in venting. And add to that the fact that PVC has gone up exponentially compared to what you are. And now the product, not only can you install it faster, but it's less money than PVC and takes away the contractor's liability on venting. And that I thank you guys for, because it has been a phenomenal go selling. And I'm not making any money, you know, with your business, but the #1 problem we have with condensing boilers is venting. And you guys answer that need. And thank you very much for having that.
And we certainly did not pay you to say any of that stuff.
Nope.
So obviously you field sourced that glowing praise yourself.
That's a good way to kind of close it down. So with a lot of respect, thank you. We'll see you in the field. Don't punish donor too much next week.
Give him the business.
So thank you very much.
Matt,
Steve,
Mike, thanks for having me. This has been great.
It was a pleasure, sir.
Thanks, guys.
Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for attending and watching, hopefully learning from our episode 10 of the Mechanical Room. Special thanks to Wheels for being our guest today. It was a great conversation. It was fun.
Absolutely great.
And even the post conversation with a cigar was even a little bit more fun. And thank you for PSI in Vail, Colorado for the entry into Show Us Your Pipe. True professionals out there, thank you. Matthew, where can someone get this content and sign us off?
Anywhere, really. Anywhere you turn, the Mechanical Room is everywhere, right? No. So this is available on Anchor, and I use Anchor to push it out to pretty much anywhere: Spotify, Apple, and Google Podcasts. And of course, if you want to enjoy the beautiful green screen with the rotating globe, that's on YouTube. So, I mean, anywhere you get your podcast material, the Mechanical Room is there. And should there be a vacancy somewhere, let us know about it. We'll get it up there as well. But yeah, I mean, welcome back to the studio. This is so cool. This is it's amazing to see how far we've come from episode 1, and only a few months later, we've expanded. I mean, today we had maybe the best Show Us Your Pipe room yet. And I mean, Steve was an incredible guest. Mr. Wheels, what a guy, honestly. That dude's, what he does, I mean, maybe he has the most fun anybody I've ever met.
He truly loves what he does, and you can tell from the interview. I mean, very animated, and he gives back.
Yeah.
He gives back to children with disabilities. He gives back to the industry. I mean, he's just purely
He's sharing his knowledge in every corner, and man, what a varied set of skills he's got.
And the baker.
Yeah, baker, golf,
Skier.
scuba, ski. I mean, the greeting card stuff, it makes him like an incredible marketing guy. I mean, it's Steve, we could learn a lot from him, and thank you so much for coming on. That was, I mean, one of the best guests we've had so far, and we've had some really, really incredible ones thus far. And we've got great plans moving for the future.
Wow, stay tuned for our December episode.
Well,
it'll be
tune into November as well, but
yeah, absolutely. Tune into all of them.
Yeah.
But Christmas or December will be a holiday special where just wait. And then if we can pull off something in January, stay tuned. We'll even have episodes within that. And it might even stream on Netflix, I think. What do you think?
Possibly. I got to get in touch with their, whoever is development over there, and we can pitch this idea.
Yes.
And they will, of course, go for it because, they're looking for this good content, of course.
Absolutely.
Of course. So, Michael, I thank you. As always, it is a great pleasure. And we'll be back next month with another edition of the Mechanical Room.
Be well. Have a happy holiday. Or happy Halloween. Sorry.
Happy holidays, no matter what it is.
Coming.
Yom Kippur, Diwali is coming up. That's in early November, I believe.
Okay, there you go. Thank you for saving me.
Yes, we've got all kinds of holiday plans across all kinds of the spectrum of holiday celebrations. I'm into them all.
There you go. Signing out.